In this video I'd like to take a look at loose graded figures and just take a moment to talk about the sort of inconsistencies I find with these the gradings on all of these figures. I'm not a massive fan of graded figures, and I only have a few in my collection just by chance, things that I've acquired while buying job lots and things that I bought because actually it was cheaper than buying a loose figure. And they all have various grading marks, but they're all very inconsistent, which is why I really don't like this grading process. So in front of us we have 6 Star Wars figures and 1 He-Man Skeletor figure. So let's take a look at a couple of things, and I'll point out the reasons why I'm not that impressed with how these things are graded and how wildly these grades vary across these figures. First, let's take a look at this rocket firing Boba Fett. This is one of the modern mail-away Boba Fetts. That I actually sent this one off just to see what grade it would come back as, just to see what would happen, and this I sent off to UK graders. Now the figure itself was straight off the card. It was mint. I actually sent them the carded figure because they were so cheap to buy, and I wanted it graded like this just to get a sort of guide for it. So the figure itself is mint, never been played with, and the paint on it is reasonable, although I did notice there was one major flaw on this figure in the fact that he had a bad paint splodge on his leg. I don't know if you can see that there, but this figure came back and they gave it a grade of 90%, and with a grade for the figure of 95 and paint at 90. Now I personally wouldn't have given this such a high grade because that's actually quite a major flaw on the side of it there, but they gave it that high a score. So first off, I thought that was a little bit odd. I have other UK graded figures. Here we have a ree-yees, and this one only got 85%, which was a 90% for the figure. The figure itself is perfect condition. I can't see any flaws in it. This is also a U graded one, so you know, you'd expect the figure to be in great condition, but it only got 80 for the paint, and this has hardly any flaws on it. There's a tiny mark on his hand and a tiny chip on the eye, but otherwise the figure is absolutely perfect. Oh, actually, just looking here, there is also a slight green mark on the back of his head. So this one got 80% for the paint, whereas this got 90%, and this flaw is considerably worse. So I just don't understand why they are such a widely sort of random in their grading. Another great example here is this Skeletor. Let me just move these figures back. This Skeletor gets an overall 80% score with 80 for the figure and 80 for the paint. I picked this up because it was actually cheaper to buy. This is a hardhead Skeletor. It's cheaper to buy this graded than it was loose. I got this for 12 quid. So in the end I'm actually going to break this out of the box because I'd rather have a loose one. But this figure is filthy. It's really dirty. There's dirt all over it. There's chew marks on the weapons. The horns of his cane have heavily chewed. There's bad paint chips on his feet and other marks on him, but it's still got 80%, and I'm not really sure why they gave it such a high mark. It even has very bad sort of crotch rot on the back of the legs. I don't know if you can see that there. So very odd that they gave this one such a high grade, considering it is actually a pretty poor condition figure. Other ones I have though, I would agree with the grades, which is sort of odd. This one here, this is a really nice R5D floor. This is actually a loose figure. It wasn't a U graded one. The figure is in really nice condition. There's hardly any marks on it at all. There's just a slight scratch to the sticker on the back of it, but this one got an overall 85, and I would actually agree with that. The figure is that good, just with a tiny flaw on the back of it. So that's the only one I have in my collection that I do agree with. Here we have a U graded, another one. This is a removable limbs C3PO. This got an 85. I would never have given this such a high grade because there's all sorts of scratch marks over his front on the chest. Very hard to see here because he's such a shiny figure. Quite a large amount of scratch marks on the front of his chest, and I think he also has marks on the back of him. But for a U graded figure, I wouldn't have classed that so high up. It's just not that good. And over here we have a Power Droid. Again, actually quite a nice figure, but it only got 75 because there's a few flaws on his feet. This should have got a much higher grade. This is not a U grade figure, this is a loose one that has been graded, but they seem to have given it a particularly low grade. Again, this is UKG. The AFA one I have here was the R5D for. And finally we have a Gamorrean Guard. Again, this one only got 85, 90 for the body and 85 for the paint, which again I can't really see why they gave it such a low grade for the paintwork, because this is a very nice Gamorrean god. The horns aren't chipped and there are no marks anywhere on him, but they seem to have gone a little bit sort of heavy-handed on thinking that the paint should be graded so low. So overall I'm just not very pleased with how inconsistent all of the graders are when they come to this grading system. So my advice really is to collectors is to buy just nice loose figures. If you want the grading, if you want to get them graded, then that's up to you, but personally I don't think it's worth all the extra hassle, and I don't think it adds any value to the figures. I'd rather have a nice set of loose figures than someone's arbitrary sort of random grading that they put onto these things. So that's my thoughts on it anyway, and I'm sure you guys all have different thoughts, so please feel free to comment on this, and thanks for watching.